The next item is the External Advisory Group report response. I'll hand over to Carleen.
Thank you. So you'll recall prior to the long-term plan, or during the long-term plan process, the Mayor established the External Advisory Group, and without limiting its terms of reference, it was to provide advice to the Mayor and Councillors in the review, development, prioritisation and phasing of the delivery of its capital programme and related OPEX implications. You received that report just prior to the hearings and signing off on the long-term plan earlier in the year. So the report makes a range of recommendations across a range of areas, but broadly looking to both influence the future annual plan and the long-term plan. Some of the recommendations were identified as assisting with the long-term plan as we developed it, but it was relatively late in the piece in terms of being able to influence that to a great extent. So the learnings will be useful for the annual plan and the future LTP. There are 8 recommendations grouped across 4 strategic themes, so alignment with your strategic framework, reviewing levels of service and service plans, capital program prioritisation and development and delivery, and including some rolling program and documentation reviews so that they don't all happen just prior to the next LTP, that it's over the 3 years in terms of that work, such as 17A reviews, service plans, asset management plans and infrastructure strategy. So there are a number of recommendations in there that we've responded to, we've already started on, that we'll also engage in over the process of the annual plan and the long-term plan. And there are some that you might want to discuss yourselves. So for instance, the EAG proposed that councillors rank their strategic priorities prior to the LTP, review levels of service, draft service plans and identify priority lists of critical assets that are intrinsically significant to the values and wellbeing of Christchurch community. Now, as we listened to you as you developed your strategic priorities, it wasn't clear that you would want to rank those. Those are intergenerational, long-term priorities. But in listening to the EAG as it was developing its working through the process and developing its work, they seem to be talking largely about prioritising the priorities around your capital and the work that happens to deliver on your strategic priorities as opposed to the strategic priorities themselves. But that might be something that you want to think through and what the best way to do that is, and we're certainly willing to assist with that. You're currently looking at levels of service or performance measures and draft service plans, and that should be an ongoing process over the 3 years, so that really have a deep dive into some of those areas before the next LTP, even though we're doing some of that now for the next annual plan. There were some other specific areas that it mentioned, so I've mentioned levels of service. There's some very specific things about revisiting investment in vertical infrastructure, such as the aquatic facilities plan and investment in those things. Presumably that was for the long-term plan process, but that might again be something that as we go through for the next LTP, you want to consider the approach to all of those things in terms of vertical capital and other capital areas. And aligning the capital program with the infrastructure strategy, also making the infrastructure strategy, the capital program and the financial strategy much more user-friendly, shorter, very clear about the strategic approach and what you're trying to achieve and integrating those. What it doesn't, it mentions but doesn't focus on is the asset management suite of documents. So it talks about reviewing those over the period of time. But actually the strategic approach to asset management is really critical for actually delivering on an infrastructure strategy and a capital program that meets your needs. So the information and the approach to that and understanding of the risks with respect to your assets will actually contribute to the prioritisation of your renewals and your capital program. And so there's a focus on the organisation about getting that right. There's a lot of work to do and to get some consistency across that, but to also to get the information though, so that then we can prioritise and make those decisions, certainly for the next LTP and annual plan, so that we get the greatest value for ratepayers and make the savings where we can make savings on future investments as appropriate. So there's a quick run through. There's quite a lot of recommendations there. They're largely about our processes and making sure that we deliver over a period of time, not just in the 1 year for the LTP, but actually work together to consider how we think about all these things together, integrate them to actually deliver on an LTP that has a fit for future, if you like, infrastructure strategy, capital program and financial program.
Pauline.
Yeah, look, generally there's some very good points in here, but I'm concerned about point 3 there, and wonder if we could change the word endorse to note the actions proposed, because we've got plenty of work to do on this still. There's a couple of things in here that I don't particularly agree with. So, because if we endorse it, does that mean that we're agreeing with all the suggestions here?
We're talking about endorsing the actions. Is it the actions or the recommendations you're not endorsing?
What's the difference, really?
Right.
I just want to change the word endorse. I think it's too strong. I don't know.
Yes,
I would
fine.
just prefer note, because this is all up for further work and discussion.
Yes, and it's ongoing work.
It is ongoing work, and I think. Sorry, I had kind of missed that. That we've now written note the actions proposed twice. So because we've got note the comments and proposed actions in that report.
And these will.
So this is note the actions proposed by staff and or by the chief executive in response. Is that what that means?
Yes.
So note the actions proposed by the chief executive. Is that what?
I didn't read it as that.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm. It doesn't make sense.
Because you've received the external advisory group report, and the resolution was about the organisation and myself responding in terms of what we would do around those things. Didn't necessarily mean we accepted them all, and so things such as the aquatic facilities is something that, you know, in a general sense, at some stage you might want to think about the facilities that we have as a city, and whether they're, one, in the right place, but two, we've got the right mix. We're meeting the needs of the various populations and communities. Well, it's not their recommendation, but as you say, you just received the recommendations, but that is a discussion for you.
Note, and that would read all right. Not that one, the second one, yeah. Note the actions proposed and these will result.
And further reports and presentations to council. Yeah, I think that
proposed actions in the EAG report.
right. It's just, yeah. Well, why don't you just delete 2? It doesn't make sense the way that it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yes.
Because what I found difficult about the report is that I can't go to one place and see the series of actions, you know, proposed. So the actions list needs to be a separate list. So I think that would be.
So you could put that into a table.
Yeah, it would be good to have a table. I mean, Ref, this is going to feed into some elements of the capital program. You know, your sort of the overview of that. Have you got some thoughts on this at all?
Yes, but I don't think it's relevant to this resolution to receive the report.
Right. So is there, I mean, what I'm wondering is there Because we're noting the actions proposed, and this will result in further reports and presentations. Is that sufficient, or is there a explicit recommendation that we would want off the back of this, you know, around like the asset management plans or anything?
So there is a process for that at the moment. So it's going both, I think, to finance performance, but certainly going to audit and risk.
Right.
So some of these things are already in train, I guess. There's lots of conversations going on.
Yeah, there are.
Can I ask a question?
Sarah?
Just checking, because they're not listed specifically as actions. What you're meaning when you say actions is the bits in the boxes, is that right?
No, below.
No, they're the
below,
recommendations.
No, they're the recommendations from the
recommendations.
EAG.
Yeah, the bits in the boxes, if I can assist, the bits in the boxes are the EAG recommendations, which were reported to you back in April
It's
by
just
the
there's
EAG.
nothing that says recommendation or action.
No, the actions are the ones captured in the paragraphs after each box, which we started to do a table, but actually got a bit difficult. But subsequently, we can produce a little timeline for you.
Yeah, there just needs to be a separate list of actions.
Yep.
Okay,
that
well,
say actions.
responses.
Yep.
Well, no, because number 3 is note the actions proposed.
Yeah.
But we don't have a list of the actions proposed.
Yeah.
So you change it
So I guess it's hard to, because of the way that the recommendations are written and what's in there, it's hard to say this is a hard action, when in fact it's actually a response. Some of it's a response, and some of it's about what we've been trying to do is actually link all these up.
Yeah.
I know, but it's just that because the resolution says noting the actions.
Right. So
And,
it's a
there's
wording.
nothing there specific that's there that are actions, if you like, or a list of actions.
Can we
So
say note
maybe
the
it's noting
responses?
responses too,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, I think it's
Because it was just
Note
hard
the
to read.
proposed responses.
Yeah.
Or note the response. Yeah.
No, just note the proposed responses. Anne?
I just wondering about the word these will result in further reports and presentations. Does that have a sort of a sense of that? Do we have a choice about it? Does the organisation have a choice about that? Because it feels like that's a lot of extra work brought to people. And
thank
could
you.
it be May?
I mean, we can certainly put...
May result?
It won't be reports on everything, but for instance, if we take asset management, there will be reports and monitoring reports as well as other reports on that and other presentations, but it won't be on everything.
May?
May.
Rather
Happy
than
with
will,
May.
because it will seems to be a bit too...
Um,
Thank you.
Well, yeah, I mean, they will lead to further reports and presentations because we are discussing both the annual plan and the long-term plan. Question, Yanni, Dion?
I appreciate why this report is here because we had a deadline. It does seem to be something that should be really workshopped and worked through. I'm just incredibly mindful that we keep asking for all this work to be done, and yet we've got huge budget constraints, huge capacity constraints, and actually at some stage we need to prioritise what we can do between now and the end of next year, or it just seems to me that I'm just really worried that even the city street speed limit stuff, that's fine, but there's a resource that's required to do these things, and we actually need to look at our program and go what's important and what can we actually do later. And at the moment we just keep seem to be putting stuff on. So I had a lot of questions about things in here, but a council meeting is not really the best time to get that clarity.
Okay.
We've also heard other strategic bits of work that have been done around community facilities, for example, so it would be really good to have a chance to look at that work program away from the full council meeting today, because I don't think we'll have time to get into the detail.
Well, so why don't we note the proposed responses will be discussed at a council workshop and that these may result in further reports and presentations to council, because that way we workshop the paper with staff, and if there are further reports and presentations that are required, then they can come off the back of that. That seems to be a very sensible solution. Because I just want to kind of make a comment about the you know, the discussion that we had before about the Preston's, the 40K. And that was what became patently clear was that we weren't really consulting the community about the 40K that is applicable to their community. We were discussing the implementation of a national strategy, and we should just have a national strategy adoption, and then we advise the community, have drop-in sessions, but don't tell them that they can change a policy, you know. So I mean, I think that was my frustration about the paper. So we need better processes around that. That was a very long time debating an issue at council that we really could have resolved by having a policy saying we're going to introduce these where they fit the guidelines, and we're going to give plenty of notice to the communities. We're going to advise them and give them drop-in sessions so they can ask and have questions answered with relevant staff from the different agencies, so that it is a combined effort, it's not just the council. Anyway, Dion.
Are we allowed to ask questions around the specific bits in this?
Well, we're going to have a workshop now, so it's probably not necessary.
Oh, okay.
I would just add, though, that we're going to continue on and do the work because it actually does influence annual plan and long-term plan.
Yeah.
So we won't be waiting for workshop.
Yeah, no, I just had a question around the AMS and AMPs that can be made available. It says in the report can be kicked, but
Yep.
I was hoping it would be, will be.
They can be technical information. We can make them available. I think that's not saying that we're not going to make it available. I think that's just a way of saying it.
Yeah, I just want us to take a bit more steps.
It's a development process, the asset management plan, so it's been a work in progress for quite some time.
Yeah.
All right, so is somebody happy to move this? Andrew, seconded Pauline. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried. Thank you.